Now.
On 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app.
O'Connor and Company.
It's 5:07, and it's O'Connor and Company on this Tuesday, the 21st day of May. Can I tell you something? You know how you're sort of in the fog when your alarm first goes off, Julie Gunlock? I think you're familiar with that phenomenon. I swear to you, this morning, when my alarm went off, I was like, oh, gosh, I forgot to reset my alarm. It's Sunday. Why is it waking me up?
Oh, no.
I thought last night was Saturday for some reason.
Oh,
and it was,
poor
yeah,
thing.
it's what, oh, boy, did I get a shock to my system. I realized the truth that we're barely starting this week, but it's okay. Because I bet you've had that as well, and we're just going to work through this. We're going to get through it together. Just help me out. Coming up later this morning at 7:05. Oh, we love Jonas Spilborn. More revelations in the Trump. Michael Cohen, God bless him. He gets on the stand.
God.
Well, we've had 3 days of sort of dwelling on the fact that he's a big old liar and was caught in a giant lie on Thursday. And then he took the stand yesterday and said, hey, you're getting it all wrong. I'm not a liar. I'm a thieving liar.
My God.
I also stole from Trump.
Hi.
We'll get into all of that. At 7:35, Eli Lake will join us, talk about the shameful reaction of the UN and the U.S. representative to the UN yesterday over the wonderful death of Iran's evil president. 8:05, the great Governor Scott Walker of Young America's Foundation. And then at 8:35, Brent Bozell, our Palette Media Research Center, who actually today is not going to talk about the media a little bit, but it's really about his son, who just got sentenced with regard to his participation in the events of January 6th. That's right. 3.5 years later, he finally gets his sentence. And, boy, something doesn't smell right about that whole story either. One wonders if his name was Brent Baker or Brent Bernstein or Brent any other name other than Bozell. Well, I guess the son's name. I'm sorry. You know what I mean.
I do.
If the son's last name were anything but Bozell, I think it would have gone differently. But, he's being punished because his father is an effective conservative activist.
That's right.
That's sure what it looks like. So Brent will come in and tell his story at 8:35. So, Julie Gunlock, good morning.
Good morning.
How's it? I was about to ask, how's it hanging? Which is kind of a thing guys say to each other. Probably not. So yesterday, I alluded to this. For some reason, diplomats felt compelled to stand up and rent their clothing and outdo each other in signs of condolence and sympathy for the people of Iran after the death of their tyrannical, murderous, disgusting, evil president. And what do you mean sympathy for the people of Iran? The people of Iran were shooting off fireworks.
You expect this from the United Nations, right? Who have people like Chinese officials on the Human Rights Committee, right? Mm-hmm. You expect this from the UN. But we saw it from NATO. We saw it from our own State Department. We saw it from the White House, okay? We saw the congressional chaplain get up there. And he actually said, we are praying for the people of Iran who are, upset about the death of their president. Really? As you just said, they're setting off fireworks. There are TikTok videos of people celebrating. And what message, when you send condolences, what message does that send to the brave people who are working for changes in Iran, the women who are removing their hijabs, and sometimes being arrested and then tortured and raped and murdered in Tehran prisons? So it really shocked me all day. I couldn't believe it.
He was known as the Butcher of Tehran.
Yeah.
Generally speaking, when a foreign leader's nickname starts with Butcher, it's probably a good thing that he's gone.
Not a nice guy. I mean, it makes you wonder, what is it that you're going to miss about this guy? The mass, incarcerations, the torture, the mass rapes, the murders. I mean, people disappearing. Like, what is it? Are we giving condolences for?
Listen to the statement from the State Department. We offer official condolences for the death of Iranian President Ibrahim Raisi, Foreign Minister Amir Abdullahian, and other members of the delegation. And then this is my favorite part. As Iran selects a new president, we reaffirm our support for the Iranian people and their struggle for human rights and fundamental freedoms. As Iran selects a president, because they don't elect them, they select them.
Right.
So, if we're offering condolences to this regime that just, all right, pick the next butcher. Who's the butcher in waiting? Did we have a vice butcher? How does that work with our Constitution? You know what? Let's allow, because this happened at the United Nations as well, which is unbelievable. I want you to hear, though, from the ambassador of Israel who spoke to the United Nations after this shameful display, because I think it's relevant to hear from their perspective.
Just this morning, you held a moment of silence to commemorate the mass murdering president of Iran. A month ago, Raisi, the butcher of Tehran, launched an unprecedented missile and drone strike on Israel to murder thousands of innocent Israelis, deliberately. The blood of thousands of innocent Iranians is on his hands. Women, members of the LGBTQ community, peaceful protesters, and many, many others. He is responsible for butchering thousands around the globe. Thousands. This is who the Security Council dedicates a moment of silence to? A terrorist? A man who murdered, oppressed, and imprisoned so many? How can it be that your list of moral priorities is so distorted? This council, which has done nothing to advance the release of our hostages, commemorates the man responsible for their suffering. What's next? Will the council hold a moment of silence for bin Laden? Will there be a vigil for Hitler? We wouldn't be surprised.
Great statement,
Yeah.
and absolutely calls them on exactly what this is about. Let's be clear, as everybody expresses their regret and condolences and outrage over what happened on October 7th. October 7th would not have happened without President Raisi's, without the butcher's approval. Not only pay for it, but I assure you Hamas doesn't go ahead unless this guy gives the green light. And then, of course, the attacks just recently on Jerusalem, the other night last month with the rocket attacks. This is a man of war. This is a man of violence. This is a man of massacre. This is a man of terrorism. And they continue to fund terrorists. Not only do the UN praise him, but you're right, our own State Department and our own Congress. When you have to bend over backwards to say nice words about a butcher, then there's something wrong with your diplomatic efforts. They've gone awry.
Yeah, again, Larry, I mean, I expect this from the UN, the clown show that is the UN that should be defunded, shut down, shipped out. Okay, but I don't expect it from the congressional chaplain, from the State Department, from the White House, from NATO. NATO, what are you doing?
Yeah.
That's what really enraged me. I mean, again, the UN, they're going to be the UN. But to hear that from the White House and the State Department and us was particularly disturbing.
Sense of mainstream media, because the double standard is real. Download the WMAL app to stream us for free.
So this was an ad in July of 2019 from Joe Biden's campaign. It was called the Trump Doctrine, and he described it: embracing dictators, threatening war, embarrassing the United States. This was Biden talking about how Donald Trump embraced dictators. Yesterday, Biden's State Department specifically went out of their way to send their condolences over the butcher of Tehran, a man who literally just slaughtered thousands in the last year, not just and continued to hold Americans hostages.
And who funded October 7th.
Yeah.
I mean, we know this.
And then meanwhile, over in the United States Senate, under the direction of Chuck Schumer of New York.
And Lord, we pray for the Iranian people who mourn the death of their president. We pray in your loving name. Amen.
But they're not mourning.
No.
They've been liberated.
They're celebrating.
We should. Eli Lake, who will be joining us later in the program, put out a nice tweet in response to all of this saying, "My condolences to the family and friends of the helicopter." It's true. The helicopter shouldn't have had to go through that. That's not right. What did they ever do? I mourn for the bears in the mountain there that might have had to eat his rancid flesh. Eli will be joining us at 7:35. But this is, this is what grown-ups do. This is how diplomacy is done. We've tried diplomacy with these people since 1979.
Yeah, but again, back to your point, I love it that, Trump was what they like to call cozying up to dictators.
Yeah.
What do you call this?
Right.
What do you call this? We offer condolences to, on the death of this the butcher of Tehran.
Yeah.
I mean,
Well, and I do like that in that ad they show a clip of Trump saying, well, I spoke with Putin and he's denying anything to do with Russian collusion and we don't think there's any, because there wasn't any Russian collusion. Look at that outrageous Donald Trump cozying up to Vladimir Putin.
Yeah,
well,
yeah.
Actually, that's exactly right. Mitch McConnell said, I too would like to extend my condolences to the people of Iran for their long suffering under the brutal theocratic rule of the Islamic Republic. I suspect a great many Iranians would rather Western admirers stop lionizing a man known as the Butcher of Tehran. So good for Minority Leader McConnell on that one.
Yeah, that's great.
Listen, it's another indication of who the Biden people are. And you heard our conversation yesterday with our guest from the organization, the Defense of Democracy.
Oh, yes.
When I said, is it reasonable to believe that we've got Iranian spies working right now at the State Department and Pentagon? He would go so far as to say, which, by the way, I think is worse than spies. We've got people who are sympathetic to Iran and are rooting for them and taking their side on this. That's worse than being a spy.
Yeah.
A spy infiltrates and is covertly working for Iran. But these are people who are unabashedly supportive of Iran and are out of the closet in that
and have
respect.
Positions within our State Department, have positions in prominent think tanks in Washington.
Oh, let's clarify that a little bit. You're right, but I would amend it to say they don't have positions in the State Department. They were given positions in the State Department. They were elevated to those positions by Joe Biden.
Yep.
When you vote for president, you may evaluate your decision on the nature of a person's tweets, I guess. But just know that if that's what you're motivated by, you're not just electing that guy who you may be happier about his tweets and that he's a little less erratic, perhaps, although this guy is more erratic than any president I've ever seen. But you're also electing an entire regime, the entire administration. And this administration, they feel bad for the people of Iran because they just lost their favorite butcher. It's 5:20. As usual, we look to the Babylon Bee for moral clarity and guidance. Would you like to see how the Babylon Bee reacted to the death of the Iranian president? Yes. There's a picture of him engulfed in flame. And the headline from the Babylon Bee, Iranian president asks manager of Paradise where all the virgins are and if it'd be possible to turn the heat down a tad.
I love it.
See, that's what our State Department spokesperson should say.
Yes.
See, Trump, that's what Trump's statement would have been. No? If you look at social media and actually cut through the garbage that you're seeing from the media, I don't understand why there's this. We'll ask Eli Lake when he joins us coming up at 7:05 about this, because I don't understand what the impulse is to bend over backwards and accommodate Iran. They have literally demonstrated nothing in 40 years that they in any way want to be a part of Western civilization, let alone the world community. If you cut through the nonsense from the media and from left-wing organizations, you can actually hear the voices of Iranian dissidents who have fled that country, who have escaped that country, who are speaking the truth about what went on there. They're actually there to be heard if you're willing to listen, and they will tell you that this was a great day that he is dead, and this gives people hope that maybe they can actually escape the tyranny that they've been living under. But there was a time when America embraced that kind of thing.
Well, we've seen in the media the last couple of years what has happened in Iran to those who do speak up, whether it's those that are working for democracy, whether it's the women who have removed their hijabs bravely and refuse the sort of moral police who make them, they're thrown in jail if one thread of hair is showing. There is a very strong movement in Iran to change things. And when you send condolences to the people who are mourning their president, no, they are not mourning him.
Here's not at all. Here's one message from a woman named, I'll put it through you. Your sympathy and condolences are a slap in the face to us. The Iranian women who face the brutality of Raisi and his regime Look at this woman's beautiful face. And there's a picture of a woman who's lost an eye. It says she's lost her eye because Ebrahim Raisi ordered the protesters to be shot in the face during the Woman Life Freedom Uprising. Now she has a message for the free world. We Iranians are not mourning the butcher of Tehran, unlike the leaders of democratic countries. Stand on the right side of history. Stand with the people, not the killers. It's 5:30.
WMAL-FM, Woodbridge, Washington, a Cumulus media station.
Making sense of the news.
News Talk 105.9.
News now.
On 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app.
O'Connor and Company.
It's 5:36. Good morning. Thanks for tuning in here to O'Connor and Company. Coming up at 7:05, Jana Spilbor, attorney, is going to give us her analysis of the latest in the Trump trial in New York. 7:35 is Eli Lake. At 8:05, the great governor of Wisconsin, Scott Walker. And then at 8:35, Brent Pozell. It's Larry O'Connor alongside Julie Gunlock.
Good morning.
Good morning, Julie. Do you remember this moment from President Trump's... God, I've been doing that a lot lately. President Biden's speech to the NAACP in Detroit.
And when I was vice president, things were kind of bad during the pandemic. And what happened was, Barack said to me, go to Detroit and help fix it. Well, poor mayor, he spent more time with me than he ever thought he was going to have to.
Boy.
God love you.
God love you. Let's just summarize the weekend for President Biden. If you could, he claimed he was vice president during the pandemic. He used the word erectionist when he meant to say insurrectionist. You know, I was a...
There were other errors.
No. There was. He also he clapped for an immediate ceasefire in Gaza.
Right. While falling asleep.
Erectionist does sound like it's like a profession, doesn't it? Like
looking into that, Larry.
Card. Yeah. What's your job? I'm an erectionist. Really? How is it? Well, you know, the market's kind of soft right now.
Oh, come on.
So anyway, this part specifically.
And when I was vice president, things were kind of bad during the pandemic.
So you can get the transcript of the president's speeches and remarks and press conference. Everything is transcribed from the White House, and then they put out the transcript. Well, they have released the transcript of that moment of the president's remarks. And they've made a slight revision. Our friend Amber Duke found this, pointed it out when going through the transcript of these remarks, that they edited it. They do that. Like, so when he has a verbal flub, which is a lot. Yeah. They go through and they sort of redline it and say, okay, this is what he said.
But this is
what he meant to say. So they actually use the strike through so everybody knows he said that, but he meant this. So you look at the transcript. When I was vice president, things were kind of bad during the pandemic. So far, so good.
And when I was vice president, things were kind of bad during the pandemic.
So they strike through on pandemic, and then they put in brackets, recession. Mm-hmm. He was reading the speech from the teleprompter. And he saw the word pandemic. Excuse me, Larry. He saw the word recession, and his brain made it pandemic.
Because he has mashed potato brains.
He has mashed potato brains. So there you go. Now it's all fine now. We've corrected the record.
And look, Amber Duke, great reporter, will come out and show everybody. But what a normal reporter will do is go to that transcript and dutifully put in recession.
Yes.
To explain what he was speaking about at that event.
Mm-hmm.
So that is because when you have a willing media, mainstream media, they'll do exactly as they're told.
But, and let's get back to our pal Amber Duke, because I love that new married name,
I know.
by the way. The former Amber Athey, if everyone's confused, is now Amber Duke, which is just an awesome married name.
Duke is a great name.
It goes further, actually, because they were able to edit that. So, like, you get a word wrong, the White House can correct that.
Right.
But if your mashed potato brains make you say complete nonsense, or
it's harder to edit,
or create meetings that never happened. So let's continue now with the statement. We got the first part already.
And when I was vice president, things were kind of bad during the pandemic.
So what he meant was recession. So just everybody erase what you heard. He meant recession. Okay, so things were bad during the recession. Now, so what happened?
And what happened was Barack said to me, go to Detroit and help fix it. Well, poor mayor, he spent more time with me than he ever thought he was going to have to.
And he's referring to, and he gestures over to the mayor of Detroit, Mike Duggan, who took office in 2014, which was after the recession. After they took office. Because that was, the recession was 2008, 2009. And he wasn't mayor until 5 years later. Yeah, I mean, that you can't really fix in the transcript. So even if you give him some grace on the word pandemic instead of recession, and then he says, so here I was in Detroit all the time, getting us through that. The mayor here, he saw so much of me. And the mayor's like, dude, I never met you before in my life. You talking about, I'm just here because I wanted to get free tickets to the Lions game. Exactly. You think I want to be mayor of Detroit? Nobody wants to be mayor of Detroit.
What an embarrassment. What a complete embarrassment.
According to Reagan Reese, a reporter from the Daily Caller who we've had on the program before, the White House has had to edit transcripts of Biden's remarks 148 times this year.
Whoa.
So we're only not even 5 months into 2024, and Biden's remarks have been edited.
And let's just be clear,
almost 150 times.
He has a traveling little
teleprompter.
Thank you.
Actually, he's got a traveling giant teleprompter. Yes. It's the biggest teleprompter you've ever seen.
This is not sort of he's speaking off the cuff and he's gone and he's speaking extemporaneously. No.
Read.
He can't read.
He literally can't read.
Wow.
So there you go. I don't know if this makes anybody feel better or not. You should be. So basically, let's just summarize this 18 seconds.
And when I was vice president, things were kind of bad during the pandemic.
He confused the word recession for pandemic and didn't actually recognize as he was saying it that, no, in fact, I wasn't vice president during the pandemic. That was something very different.
And what happened was Barack said to me, go to Detroit and help fix it. Well, poor mayor, he spent more time with me than he ever thought he was going to have to.
And he invented meetings with a man who was not mayor of Detroit.
And just for those who think that he wasn't referring to the current mayor who was sitting there, he actually turned to him and said, God love you.
Yeah.
So he actually is referring to the guy who was not in office at that time. Yeah.
God love you.
There it is.
There it is, yeah.
Oh, one other. So adding to the embarrassment and shame of the international community, not only did they honor the memory of the Butcher of Tehran, but also the ICC, this is the International Criminal Court, delivered articles of arrest, I guess, yesterday for, yes, the leader of Hamas, but also Hamas they did a while ago because, he's a terrorist. No, yesterday they put out orders to arrest Benjamin Netanyahu and Defense Minister Yoav Gallant of Israel for war crimes.
Just astonishing.
With absolutely zero evidence of any war crimes.
Right.
But they're looking to arrest the prime minister. And, of course, the U.S. had barely a thing to say about it, if anything. But this is because the signal was sent by Joe Biden and the people in his administration that the problem is Benjamin Netanyahu. Let's not forget that Charles Schumer on the floor of the Senate said that Netanyahu was an impediment to peace, that that they're not going to actually have peace until they get a new government over there. So, of course, now Biden put out a statement. Oh, big deal.
Yeah.
Put out a statement criticizing it, saying there's no equivalence between Israel and Hamas and that it was outrageous. But guess who's been equivocating Israel and Hamas? Guess who just applauded a permanent ceasefire?
That's right.
This weekend. Biden did.
Yeah.
You can't have it both ways.
It's an interesting twist here. So Amal Clooney is, obviously married to George Clooney. Mm-hmm. And she's a lawyer, and she's been involved in all of these international law cases, and she often sort of advises. And apparently she had a key role in drafting and recommending these arrest warrants for Netanyahu. So I find that very I'm not totally surprised, but usually she is doing human rights, particularly for women. So it's interesting to see her involved in this.
I have two things to say about that. Yeah, Amal Clooney, great, wonderful. No, seriously, it's like, oh, she's such an international. She's so wonderful. She's like, okay. Yeah. Two things. First of all, I really think that the International Criminal Court should go to Jerusalem, knock on Benjamin Netanyahu's door, and try to arrest him. And,
that'll go well.
And please, let's turn the cameras on so we can all watch what happens. I think they should come with the cuffs, read him his rights, frisk him. Oh, you should definitely frisk him.
That'll go well.
Pull over the motorcade when he's driving to Parliament. I really want to see you do that. Come on. It's one thing to put out a press release and issue the arrest warrants. Go execute that warrant. Go arrest Bibi, and let's see how that works out for you. Number two, and this may be controversial and people might not like to hear this. Someone needs to explain to me what Benjamin Netanyahu and the government of Israel is doing right now in protecting their citizens, trying to rescue their hostages, and trying to kill the terrorists who just slaughtered the innocent people at the music festival just 7-8 months ago. Someone needs to explain how what their actions over the last 7 months in this war, how it is different than our actions in Iraq, which some could argue was even less justified. Mm-hmm. Right? And I'm not making that argument, but some could make that argument. Some
have made that
argument. People
argument.
can make the argument that the ICC has every right to arrest Benjamin Netanyahu. You can make an argument about anything. But if you truly believe that Israel is guilty of war crimes and Netanyahu should be arrested, then you need to explain specifically what is different between their actions over the last 7 months and our actions in Iraq for 20 years.
Well, Larry, there are plenty of people who want Bush arrested,
right,
and who have made the point you're making.
Cheney's a war criminal. Yeah. Cheney's a war criminal.
Okay.
Until, of course, Liz Cheney was on their side.
Back to Amal Clooney, George Clooney. I know you don't care, but she's not making that point. I mean, the stars in Hollywood aren't making that point. They are centered and focused on Israel for reasons. I wonder why.
Yeah.
I wonder why.
It's 5. Oh, Eli Lake again will join us at 7:35 to discuss this and more. It's 5:53.